So what about the relationship of enterprise architecture and digital transformation? I suspect a lot of you have been involved, have seen us like very early on when we were originally being considered as part of a tender process for this engagement in Aboitis. We took this through as part of our sort of our own sales pack to explain why EA was important to the Aboitis group. And the first is the fact that digital transformation. It's going to be no news to any of you people here that digital transformation is one of the major trends across the globe. These figures are actually developed pre-COVID. I'll try to avoid using that word as much as possible as I can through these presentations. I think we're all truly over talking about COVID. The only reason I mentioned here is that we are aware, we have seen the numbers for 2019 and they were actually much higher, and 2020 higher again. But in mid-2019, pre-COVID, IDC, which is one of the world's largest research agencies, did this investigation and identified that the world plans at that point were to spend $1.2 trillion in 2019 globally on digital transformation, then expanding to 1.9 trillion in 2022. We haven't actually seen the numbers for 21 and 22, but 2020 was actually 2.1 trillion. So it was much higher than that. And there's no doubt in my mind, and I think it would be generally agreed, that was as a result of COVID accelerating people's move to digital transformation. I suspect the numbers will be closer to 3 trillion when they finally land for 2022. To put that in context, 1.2 trillion, which is what they were planning to spend on 2019, it actually ended up as 1.8 trillion, is the equivalent of Australia's GDP, or 6% of the United States GDP. These are very material numbers. So I guess that's the first point, is digital transformation is one of the most fundamental changes, probably roughly equivalent to the .com era when we moved to the internet in 2000. I would say with some confidence that this digital transformation wave is as big as change as the arrival of the internet in 2020 in terms of the impact it's going to have on businesses, and certainly on the amount of money that's being spent on it to enable it. Okay, well, so there's a lot of money being spent on digital. Well, what does that mean for EA? Why do we care? But what's the relationship between EA and digital? Well, the first really is that enterprise architecture really is about making sure that you do have that vision for your Winchester house, you've got a Mount Stewart vision for where you want to go. If you're going to be spending the sort of money that you're going to be spending on digital transformation, you better do it with a target. You better do it with a vision. There's no point in spending that amount of money and then just to rebuild what you have today. That would be, you're not going to win any fans in your business if you spend that sort of money and you end up back where you started with. So the first role of enterprise architecture is to nail the fundamentals. You understand your strategy, you understand your target state for your people and for your technology, and you have a roadmap for that technology, and you understand how we're actually going to get to this new digitally transformed state. You will not digitally transform your organization by accident. You'll not get to the right place without having a plan to get there. So really, EA critically supports the successful change to digital. Once you get to digital, that enables you now to start playing offense, to start taking on your competitors, because you've got a fundamentally lower unit cost of operation, you have a higher level of customer service, you've got a more digitally savvy workplace and staff. So you're now ready to really play offense and not sort of defend your ground from the new people, but you will actually become one of the disruptors. So another way of putting this is you move from being subject or susceptible to disruption to actually becoming the disruptor and actually disrupting your competition. But that at its core then really is only the first step. It's a very important step, and you should start seeing material benefits and ROI once you get to this point. But really it also enables faster innovation for the future and makes you more agile to change. Because again, if you're going to spend this amount of money in digital transformation, one of our assertions in Fragile to Agile is you want to end up not just digitally transformed, but fundamentally more agile and adaptable, because this won't be the last wave of change we see. There will be plenty more to come. In fact, there's a strong argument that the rate of change is just accelerating. I heard a statement from the US the other day, which I quite liked, that is, change is the new black. That you just got to have to get used to it. And everybody is just going to have to undergo continuous change. So really, at the core, EA helps make change easier. Last slide on this, really, a couple of slides on the relation to digital. Again, this is from that same large-scale IDC research in 2019. And they characterized the organizations at that point as being either digitally distraught or digitally determined. There are a couple of subcategories, as you can see there. But broadly in 2019, 54% of organizations they categorized as digitally distraught, which meant that they weren't really, they were putting their toe in the water. They might have a little initiative here around digital transformation. One line of business might be doing it. You might have a short-term initiative that's around maybe just delivering a new customer digital experience platform, but no integrated strategy that says we've got a whole of organization view of how we're going to move to a digitally transformed, or I guess at the most extreme, that digital transformation is your strategy. I think for most, with the exception of Union Bank, where I think in the financial services sector, you've got no choice but to actually digital transformation being a part of your strategy. At the very least, the rest of the avoidance group is aimed for, has now as a view of an integrated strategy. And that's what EA has brought to the table. So our assertion basically is organizations who are not digitally determined are likely to lose out to those who are. And I'm looking forward, I believe there's going to be a refresh of this IDC one coming shortly in the next couple of months. And I'll be interested to see how the numbers have changed here. I suspect you'll see a much higher percentage of organizations and how digitally determined that were in 2019. Again, a couple of more things from a more recent survey, actually. And I'm not going to, you can have a look at this, and I appreciate it's slightly blurred here for you, but you'll be able to see it when you'll get access to all this material, obviously, by the way, apart from this being recorded for you to watch at your leisure. You will actually get all of the slides presented to you at the end of the course, all the notes, the slides. We do ask you, in order to get them, to fill in a review, because we like getting our own constructive feedback. So the slight cost of getting access to all of them is filling in our Survey Monkey and telling us what you thought of the course and things we might be able to improve. But the general point here is that organizations that get the maximum value for EA, or where EA is most valued by the executive, are the ones that act and think more strategically. And certainly that's the view we've seen across the avoidance group here, is that the executive is certainly thinking strategically. And Sabine, I don't think I've heard a tactical word out of that man's mouth. He's always talking strategically. So as a consequence, you're well positioned within the group to demonstrate that value to you. If the organization is only thinking 3 months ahead or 6 months ahead, it's less likely to see value in enterprise architecture. And that's just a truism. It's a longer picture, EA. A longer term payback, I would say. And another one here, again, apologies for being slightly blurred, but this also related back to that prior IDC survey. And broadly, the way looking at this is that for digitally determined organizations, they rate the value of EA much higher than the digitally distraught organizations. And again, that would make common sense, but it's quite significant. It's about in the order of 30 percentage points higher EA is valued in organizations that are digitally determined than digitally distraught.